We're here today to talk about Florida's additional efforts on mental health and substance abuse. And we've done a lot in Florida over the last many years. In 2021, for example, we launched the Resiliency Florida Initiative, first in its nation approach created to provide students with the resources and skills necessary to overcome life challenges. And part of that was removing the stigma from needing mental health support. And that's been something that's been really, really significant. We're also proud of the wide variety of services we now offer to help Floridians of all ages overcome mental health challenges in order to lead self-sufficient, happy lives. In 2023, Florida's network of providers assisted more than 100,000 individuals as they navigated their unique mental health needs and helped to prevent the need for more intense levels of care. We also built a state emergency hotline, 988, which has helped to resolve 96% of cases without escalatory measures like hospitalization or EMS response, and has recorded 0 suicide deaths amongst the callers to date. We've also provided a series of grants to cover financial gaps for homeless families or those at risk of falling victim to homelessness with specific accountability measures in place. And these grants, including over $85 million in 2021, support shelter operations, rental and mortgage assistance, utility assistance, rapid rehousing assistance, and transportation costs. Partially due to our actions, Florida's homelessness rate is 22% less than the national average. And you see places like San Francisco and LA where their policies encourage more homelessness. I think our policies are trying to discourage that, and part of that is offering the support. We have some of it is also holding people accountable, quite frankly. And you look, people have been asking me about this New York City Democrat mayor primary, and because look, I'm not asking for anybody to come here, okay? We've got a big state. We got 23+ million people. I mean, just 5 or 6 years ago, we had like 21 million people. We've got 3 or 4 million more people than New York State does now. And they were the most populous state for a large part of American history. But then even, in the last 30 years, they were more than us. And so, and I'm not like running around like begging businesses to move. Most of them move on their own because they think Florida's got a lot to offer, and we do. But the reality is, and look, this is not the actual election, it's the primary. But when you win the Democratic primary in a 6-1, 7-1, 8-1 Democrat city, you have a great chance, obviously, to win. And people say, but all this stuff matters to Florida because when Chicago goes south, then people all of a sudden, you see all these people showing up in Naples. When New York City, and during de Blasio, a lot of people got out. And that's why Palm Beach and Miami, and you see all this stuff. So there is an impact, and so I watch these things because I do know it will affect the state of Florida. Not that I'm asking for it to, or not that we're wanting it to, but when you have a candidate who wants to abolish the NYPD, who says, well, we're not going to send police into these high crime areas. We're going to send social workers. That ain't going to end well. I'm just telling you right now. And so, and I'll tell you, we have a program in Florida where we give $5,000 recruitment bonuses to police officers who join either our sheriff's departments, our local police departments, or even our state law enforcement agencies. And we've had a lot of people come down from NYPD over the years. What do you think is going to happen if this guy becomes mayor? He wants to abolish NYPD. So you're going to see a lot of people take advantage of that. Now, I know Senator Albritton was supportive of funding that bonus program in the budget. Again, we've done it now for a number of years, been wildly successful. If this guy gets in, we may need to up that. I mean, because you're here. I mean, there's just going to be a flood of people, and these are good folks. They're very, very public oriented, and they want to serve the public. But it's like, to have no support. And he not only wants to do that, he wants to eliminate cash bail. Here's what bugs me about these things. I disagree with it, obviously, but it's like, this isn't the first rodeo with these bad ideas, right? People have tried them. They have failed. They have failed in places like San Francisco. They failed in Chicago. They failed. Some of these things have been tried, like in New York City. And to say, like, you know, we're going to make sure that, like, the government takes over grocery stores so you get cheaper food, that's not going to work. We know that that's not going to work. To try to say that you're going to, you know, not have jails or not have prisons, like, we know that that is not going to work. And so, you know, it's frustrating to see, because this isn't like these are new ideas, right? These are ideas that either when they've been tried have failed, but usually they don't have enough political support to even get over the goal line to even be implemented, because people understand that that's not the way to do things. So we're anticipating, depending on what happens in November, there will be impacts, I think, in Florida. At a minimum, I think you're going to see some of these police officers say, why am I wearing this uniform and putting myself at risk when you have a mayor that doesn't even believe our job should exist, doesn't believe these people should be held accountable for the crimes? That's a huge, huge problem. And I'll tell you, when we had basically 2 or 3 years in Florida, we probably had a decade's worth of migration. Part of it was what we had to offer, but a lot of it, people were fleeing really bad policies, and public safety was like #1 on their list. You know, you could talk about no income tax, you can talk about good business environment, you could talk about, you know, lack of COVID, you know, restrictions, you could talk about education. All these things are important, but that was #1. And so what I see them doing is potentially really rolling the dice. I was a big critic of de Blasio when he was mayor, and I think the guy that they nominated has the potential to be much, much worse than even de Blasio. But I digress. So, so here we are today. We have reduced homelessness. We're 22% less in homelessness. Part of that is support, but part of it is also accountability, and I think you got to do both. But we want to keep the momentum going. So today I'm going to sign Florida Senate Bill 1620, which implements key recommendations made by Florida's Commission on Mental Health and Substance Abuse Disorder. Now, some folks are going to be talking about the bill a little bit more in depth, but I think that this is the product of people really looking and trying to see what goes on in this space, and not only just in Florida, but looking around the country to see what's worked or not worked, and then offering recommendations about how we can do a better job. And so you're going to see a lot of things, I think, that'll be very, very positive. So I want to thank folks who were involved with that. I think this helps build a system to try to prevent the worst crises from occurring in the first place. And a lot of times when you have really serious crises, there's a buildup to that, that if you did have some support earlier on, probably could have been avoided. And I think the fact that our hotline has had X number of people and not had the suicides tells me that that's something that really, and you end up in the situation where people aren't being heard or they don't have any support. We're also signing Senate Bill 168, which is called the Tristan Murphy Act. And this grew out of Tristan Murphy was a young man. He had schizophrenia, paranoia, and delusions, but he was not provided the mental health care that he was really in dire need of when he got involved with the criminal justice system. And, you know, he committed, you know, crimes, but they weren't necessarily, you know, violent crimes. You didn't necessarily have a victim on kind of what he was doing, an automobile, some other stuff like that. You know, the reality is it is what it is, but he got passed around in the justice system. There really wasn't a pathway to have a mental health intervention, which may have ended up being much better had they done that. And so this led to a tragedy in 2001 on a work detail. Tristan committed suicide. And so this is something that probably there would have been a good chance that that would have been mitigated or that he wouldn't have even attempted that had there been some mental health intervention. And so under this bill, counties and municipalities are going to be able to establish misdemeanor mental health programs, as well as pretrial felony programs, so that if people are in the justice system and they have these particularly really significant mental health afflictions, that we don't think that somehow just putting them in jail is going to fix that. That is not going to fix those problems, and people need to be held accountable, but you also have to provide support in ways that will actually address the problem. And so this is something that sheriffs, courts, and treatment providers will have a clear process. They're going to be able to provide people in programs that are going to help them. This bill expands criminal justice, mental health, and substance abuse reinvestment grant program to include a new focus on veteran treatment court programs and on emergency responder training. And for the first time, this bill requires mental health evaluations for individuals with a history of incompetency adjudications before they're placed on probation and returned to society, which have functioned as a loophole. So I want to thank Ben Albritton for really leading the charge on this. I know this is something that he was very passionate about. This provides tools, and I see Sheriff Permel here, and he's the head of the Sheriff's Association. I said, are you guys going to use this? They said, absolutely. This is going to be something that is going to be good. And I think if you talk to a lot of people in law enforcement, and obviously you have a lot of really dangerous criminals that just need to be kept off the street, but a lot of people that interact with the justice system, the root cause is not that they're bad people trying to harm others, it's that they've got a lot of mental health problems that are leading to behavior that is antisocial. And so to the extent that we can do that and identify that and potentially provide solutions for that, that's going to ultimately be better for taxpayers. It'll be